All right. You know what it is? You know who it is? We're back. We got episode 24 of the Fight Cast. We got a review of this awful fight that was Ben Askren and Jake Paul. We're going to talk about UFC Fight Night. We had a good fight between Gastelum and Whitaker and a lot of stuff that's coming up with that. And then we're going to preview all the boxing this weekend. And then the UFC. It's a huge UFC card, 3 championship fights. Two of which are female division, and they're both savages, the current champs and the people they're fighting. So let's get into it. I think we'll brush over this Askren Paul nonsense because
Yeah, let's just get it over with.
yeah,
Trash.
it was bad. It was
Done.
bad.
Done. There we go. Let's move on.
Yeah, Triller was terrible. The fight was awful. Jake Paul, if you didn't see, knocked out Ben Askren with and I think it was like a minute into the first round with a right hand because Ben's guard was absolutely atrocious for boxing. Didn't move his head. Didn't do anything.
No, I don't even think he realized that a punch had been thrown.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
He literally just took it.
He was standing there with his guard halfway down his fucking face, and the shot just came right over his glove, and he didn't move it at all. Didn't try to move his head. So
Yep.
I guess he just figured, I'll just eat this punch.
That was it. And, I thought he'd be able to eat a couple more. I still don't think Jake hits that hard. I think he was just not expecting it, honestly, like you said.
Well, he does hit hard, but again, like I think I said this last week, it's because of the weight, because he doesn't know how to box.
Yeah.
Like he throws all of his punches with his body, with the entirety of his body, which is why he ends up looking at the ground when he's throwing it too, because he puts so much force, put so much of his body behind the punch that he can't catch himself. He can't snap back into position.
Yeah.
He throws punches so hard with so much that he throws himself right out of position. It's a sign of a trash ass fighter, dude that doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But when you got a guy in front of you that doesn't know how to get away from it, I mean, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And he was talking a little bit about it. Askren was that he's never worried about the right, because every time he's worried about the right in the UFC, he usually just goes for the takedown. Like he wants people to throw that punch. So he was saying that was the biggest reason why that was like an issue for him, and he always kept his guard down. And that was like the whole thing during the camp because he had. Do you know Tyron Woodley?
Yeah,
he's a UFC fighter, and he was like on him the entire camp. Like, you got to keep that hand up. You got to keep your hand up. You got to keep your hand up. And Ben was like, I know. Like, I got to keep my hand up, blah blah. But like he was saying that in the UFC, he wanted people he wanted people to throw that right, because as soon as he did, he'd drop right under for the takedown.
Yeah, well, I don't. Yeah,
takedown. But again, it's boxing. He said he tried his best to fix it within the 12 weeks. It was just something that was just so ingrained, and he had to like think about to fix, and it just wasn't going to happen.
That's one of the things. Again, I've said it many times. I'll keep saying it. MMA guys need better boxing coaching. You can't just depend on, if a guy throws a punch, I'm gonna do this one thing. You have to know how to defend it, and so that shouldn't even have been an issue going into the fight. Like, oh my God, this is so ingrained in me. I'm so used to doing this. Why the fuck aren't you used to moving your head out of the way of danger? Yeah. That's what, like, that drives me fucking nuts. Yeah. It's like the simplest, the most basic fucking instruction, like, thing to remember in fighting. Attack comes, move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Attack comes, move out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't understand like why it's such an issue. Like, oh my God, I'm so used to doing this other thing, which is just not defending the shot at all. That like I got into boxing and I can't defend the shot. Learn how to fucking move your head, and then they wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and
it's so frustrating.
And the rest of the, I think if anybody who did watch the rest of the card, it was just not good. I hope they don't do more shit on here. What?
Did you? I don't know what happened with the Red Catch fight. So Pro Grace.
Pro Grace won. He won. He ended up dropping him in the 6th round.
Okay, was there some controversy or something? Because I read that he got awarded a TKO after the fight. Like,
there was, I forgot exactly what it was because I was kind of watching the UFC a little bit in between that fight. But he knocked him down, or I forgot exactly what happened. I know Pro Grace won. I don't know what the whole TKO situation was. But the rest, I mean, that fight was just kind of like they were. I know you said Prograis was an actual like he's like an actual fighter. He
Yeah,
didn't
so
look
it's
good
right
today.
catch. Yeah.
Yeah, they both kind of looked like ass, both guys.
Yeah,
Um,
they're lower tier fighters, but they both been in there with like champions. So
yeah, yeah, and like I said, they were probably the best. They were definitely the best fight of the night. Uh, whether they were, you know, the most interesting fight or not was another question. But Prograis, won. There was another fight on there that some billionaire, like Fournier, his name is something Fournier, against some like I don't even know who the hell this dude was. Like literally looked like he never boxed in his life. He was crossing his feet when he was walking. He might have thrown like 4 punches.
there was
Like
another celebrity fight on the card.
yeah, it was. Hold on, let me see. I'm gonna have to look up the rest of this card.
Dude,
Uh,
what a mess. What's happening?
screen-
And for the idiots that were fucking watching that, well, I mean, I guess it didn't matter because that Andre fight was on earlier in the night, but
yeah,
that ended up being a great fight.
yeah. I think Joe Fournier versus Raycon. I don't know who Raycon is.
I don't even know. I don't even know.
Raycon's a music performer, apparently.
I don't know what any of what you said means.
Yeah, basically. I don't know. Let me hold on. I'm looking up Joe Fournier.
I don't understand.
Joe Fournier is an entrepreneur. It says English entrepreneur selling to FT. He owned his own fitness business, then moved into the nightclub industry and then boxing. No idea. I don't really know. Nor do
So
I care.
he's a nobody. Yeah, I don't give it. What it said, he's a famous entrepreneur. I never heard of him. So
Yeah, I never heard of him either. The other fight on the card was Frank Mir versus Steve Cunningham. Um, a 70-pound weight difference for that fight. Frank Mir was like 270, and this guy Steve Cunningham was like 200, and Frank Mir lost. And he was like Frank Mir is a former fighter. He's just real big, just like it's just bad. It was bad overall. The card itself was awful. The music they had, dude. Oh my god! Like the music was literally there was a 30-minute stretch on the card that was just music, and it was these Saweetie and Doja Cat. Never, I don't really listen to them, but literally 30 minutes straight was just them singing like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 songs. Then Justin Bieber, and then they had obviously the whole Oscar De La Hoya situation. He came on, so it
what
was just,
was that? Him talking about his fight or
well,
whatever?
he came on as a what do you call it, a broadcaster, like an announcer during the
Oh,
fight, and the dude was like clearly on something. He was kept saying he's like just kept like repeating words, and like just saying shit that didn't make any sense, and just like bouncing back and forth from topic to topic to topic to top, and everyone was just kind of like, dude, like this is bad. And I think he said something about drugs up there. I didn't listen because I wasn't really listening to the fight. Um, I had it on the stream, and then I was like bouncing back and forth. I was mostly watching UFC. It was him, Snoop Dogg, Al Bernstein, which Al Bernstein again probably wanted to kill himself. And, Oscar De La Hoya. Oh, what the hell's that guy's name? He's the comedian from Saturday Night Live, the guy who dated Ariana Grande.
oh, Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson, and
Pete
then
Davidson was a commentator.
he was the commentator and he was the main interviewer of both locker rooms. So he went into Jake Paul's locker room, interviewed Jake Paul. It was a terrible interview. And then he left, started talking shit about Jake Paul, went into Ben Askren's locker room, and then left and started talking shit about Ben Askren. It was such a joke of a
Dude,
performance.
so here's the thing. I did watch something that came out of that did catch my eye was like, and I know it was a little bit of just clickbait because the video didn't I didn't see that in the video what was described, but it said that Jake Paul now wants to fight Tyron Woodley in a boxing match or something.
So
right? And so I watched it, right?
yeah,
And it was Tyron Woodley mainly arguing with Jalen Love.
yeah.
Julian Love is a boxer
Yep.
who's not very good.
Yeah.
But the shit that he was saying to Tyron Woodley had me cracking up because he was being as deadly serious as you could possibly be about that, and it was funny.
Yeah.
He was holding the gloves up and he's like, "Yo, you don't know nothing about these, bro." He's like, "Why are you in here? You don't know nothing about these." That shit had me dying because the fact of the matter is, so anyway, there is no like none of that in there. Like Jake Paul said a few words, but basically he was minding his own business. But basically, what came out of that is like I saw this guy who was not a very good boxer. He's okay.
Yep.
Talking to this championship level MMA fighter
Hall
and
of
telling
Fame.
yeah, you don't know nothing about these gloves. And like the idea of them fighting was like, oh, that's cool. But again, if they put gloves on, if they're in the ring, Jalen Love is fucking that dude up.
Well, Tyron Woodley said he's not. Tyron Woodley said he's not fighting Jalen Love unless he goes in the cage. And then
see, he's smart.
Yeah,
he's smart.
He said Jake Paul, he'll fight. He'll box.
See, that's smart because I think that Woodley's hands are good enough and he's big enough to fuck Jake Paul up.
Well, the thing is Woodley walks around. He even said I was listening to him today because he was on Ariel Helwani's show. And it was actually a good interview because I have never really listened to Tyron Woodley that much, but I like Tyron Woodley. He's kind of fallen off a little bit, but he's also like he's getting disrespected. Like these guys, and that's one thing I hated like this weekend because everyone was disrespecting Tyron Woodley. And like Jalen Love is a boxer, but like Jalen Love would get his fucking like that's the thing is like I don't think they understand that like in that situation, like if Tyron Woodley wanted to, he could have killed Jalen Love in 2 seconds. And they were talking about
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they're standing in front of each other. He's at arm's length, so I mean, he's got to not get hit in the face first.
Exactly.
And again, Tyron Woodley coming from the UFC is not known for moving out of the way of punches.
That's true.
You know I mean?
I still think.
I see what you're saying. It's not like like now we're talking about street fight. It's like you don't have some advantage that you would in the ring. Right? I mean,
so what they were talking about Tyron Woodley saying he's like a bum or whatever, and Jalen Love was saying you don't know nothing about these like the gloves. Tyron Woodley he's definitely not a bum. He's definitely, he's one of the better fighters in like the history of the UFC. And he was even saying it today and I was listening to him talk and he's right. He was 2 fights away from being considered the GOAT. Like, he was at a point where when he lost to Usman, who's fighting this weekend, if he had beat Usman and then beat Colby next, he would have been considered the best fighter of the welterweight division ever and probably would have been above Georges St-Pierre because his competition was significantly better than Georges St-Pierre. But, it didn't happen. He lost. But again, he fought Usman, Burns, and Colby. He broke his rib against Colby Covington and, ended up having to draw out of the fight. It was a pretty close fight. I would say Colby was winning. His last fight was just a bad fight overall. And he, again, didn't move his head. So, for him, he's had a rough go at his last 4 fights. I still think, he's obviously a better boxer than Ben Askren. I think 90% of the world is a better boxer than Ben Askren.
So that's smart, man. I like what Woodley's doing there. He's like, look, man, I know this dude Jalen Love has been boxing his whole life, even though he's like an average boxer.
Yeah,
he's still gonna whoop me in the ring.
Yeah,
but Jake Paul, my hands are better than Jake Paul's hands. You know what I mean? And I'm big enough and athletic enough.
So that's what I was getting to. Tyron Woodley said he walks around at 200. And I didn't know. I misunderstood the whole situation with Ben Askren. He walked in 20 pounds heavier than normal. Like he's usually a 170 fighter.
Dude, he looked
and he looked like a fucking. Someone said he looked like a milk jug. So
he looked like someone's dad at a barbecue. You know what I mean?
So he was just not in a good position there, and I think everybody knew that going in. But Jake especially knew that, picking him at a 20-pound, weight disadvantage. But Tyron Woodley walking in, cut to the fucking bone at 200. Like, I don't think Jake Paul's gonna do it. He was
there's no way.
He was calling out
Nate Diaz too.
No, but there's an actual boxer. Tommy Fury was the guy that I've heard.
Tommy Fury.
Yeah, he's like 5-0. I don't know if he's related to Tyson Fury. He's like I mean,
it can't because I know Tyson Fury does have I forget what his brother's name is, but he does have a brother that boxes. Um, and
Tommy Fury
that
is a British professional boxer and a reality TV star. Took time off from boxing to star in the date. He is a half brother of heavyweight champion Tyson Fury.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've seen that dude fight before. He was actually on I want to say he was on one of Tyson Fury's undercards a couple years ago or something like that. He can fight. That's not a real thing. I don't believe for a second that that's a real thing. I think I said this last week, and I hope everyone keeps this in mind moving forward with everything that Jake Paul says. His entire business, his entire brand is built on hype.
Yep.
So the more he talks, like, I'm calling this dude out, that's hype. That brings him attention, that brings him money, that brings his team money.
Yep.
But when it comes down to it and they actually choose to actually fight, it's not going to be a boxer.
Yep.
You guarantee that.
Well, I think, yeah. Well, that's why I don't know what's going to happen next. It looks like Woodley's pushing for this. Like, he's actually pushing for this. I doubt that he's going to fight Woodley, and I doubt that he's going to fight. The problem is Jake's in a spot where, like, he's not going to get the Nate Diaz. Like, he's not. Nate Diaz is not coming down. Connor's not coming down. He called out DC, like Daniel Cormier. Like, he's just calling out a bunch of random people. And, like, he's only.
Yeah, it's the hype train. Just call people out, and people think I'm awesome because I'm calling people out.
So whatever happens,
it's not real. Him calling out DC, that's not real. Like, come on, that's not real.
Yeah. So I'm
even the Connor, I almost don't believe that the Nate Diaz call out is real.
It's not.
He talks all that shit about Conor McGregor, and as terrible as Conor McGregor has looked in his past few fights, and as much as I think his head is not even in the fight game anymore, I think on a bad day in his sleep, Conor McGregor could just with his hands beat the shit out of fucking Jake Paul. Yeah. So I don't think that's real either. And Nate Diaz, you know, again, his boxing is a little suspect. I know they come from a boxing background, but I think all them years of doing jiu-jitsu, they got a little rusty with his hands. But even him, he'll box the shit out of.
The problem is Nate Diaz is still 170 fighter. Like, he's a 170 fighter. He's not a 200-pound guy. So if him going in at 200,
I don't think that would matter to Nate Diaz.
No, I don't think it would matter either. But I'm saying, like, I don't think Nate would be at his peak at 190. Like, that wouldn't be a good look for him, and I don't think he would want to do it. So I mean,
if they did do that, they could find a catch weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like maybe like 180. Maybe if Jake Paul can get down to 180. Either way, I don't think that. I think the team around Jake Paul, whoever's managing him and making those decisions, like regarding who he's fighting, I think they're too smart to pick Tyron Woodley. Yeah. I don't think they'll ever do that. I guarantee the next person he fights is going to be another MMA fighter who's not that good, who can't.
Well, that's the thing is, like, they're talking about it now, and again, Ariel Helwani was talking about this, but you know, he made a really good point. He was like, Jake's managed to turn this into him versus MMA, like him versus the UFC community.
And like, he's representing boxing.
And he keeps saying that. And
there is no one in the boxing community that is like, yeah, all right, Jake Paul's beating up these fucking MMA. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Because if people that don't know anything about boxing hear like, oh, this boxer, Jake Paul, is fighting, and then watch him and they think that's what boxing is, he's doing a disservice to the entire fucking sport. And a sport that has a history that goes back to the fucking dawn of man. So, I mean, fuck him and everything, all that bullshit he brings to it.
The sad part is he's doing something right. They said he had 1 million pay-per-view buys.
We live in America in 2021. We just had a reality TV star as president for 4 years. All the dude is doing is open his fucking mouth, and people are like, oh yeah, and they're clapping like fucking seals at a circus. This is great.
It's insane.
They don't know what they're fucking. People don't know what they want until someone tells them what they want. That's the problem.
Yeah.
There's so much shit out there that they're like, okay, tonight I'm gonna like, and this is the average person that doesn't know anything about boxing, right? Canelo's on tonight. I know the name. He's a big star, but Jake Paul's fighting tonight, and he's a loudmouth and says things, and he's more like me, and he's more hip. I'm gonna watch him. That's what this country is. That's what the culture that we live in. You know what I mean? So, you know, I don't know that it's hard to do what he's doing. You know what I mean? To get 1 million pay-per-view buys when you already had a following because you were a child actor,
Yeah.
and all you do is go around talking shit to get attention. Like the old saying goes, "There's no such thing as bad publicity." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, is it really fucking hard? Like
No, I don't think it's hard. I just
he's
think that
clearly a
it's
fucking
insane.
dummy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I just
He's
think it's
clearly
insane that
stupid.
a million people were willing to pay to watch him fight. Like I said, I don't think it's
They
hard,
were
especially
probably
by his.
all fucking 17 years old, and they
Yeah.
were all watching it on their cell phones too. Little
Yeah.
fucking idiots.
Well, at least we don't have to talk about him for a while until whatever comes up. It's looking like I said, they were talking about Tyron Woodley because his story makes the most sense right now because he was in Ben's corner. He's really good friends with Ben and be like avenging Ben's loss, whatever. But I doubt Jake will put himself in that situation. But I'm excited to not have to talk about it because it was awful. Triller was awful. Oscar De La Hoya is, talking about his next fight. He's like, I'm gonna fucking kill whoever's in front of me. He's like, just sounded like an idiot. Just
I
absolutely
think
sounded like an
it,
idiot.
it, it kind of sounds like Golden Boy Promotions is going down the shitter or something. Like,
Yeah,
what is he doing?
yeah. And then he
It's
posted
fucked up. I saw the a Forbes list like I don't know, like maybe a month or two ago,
mhm.
uh, and Forbes list of athletes,
Yeah.
retired and active, and De La Hoya was on there worth like 250 million or something. So it's like,
Well,
what is he doing?
like Dana
What are
said.
you doing, man?
Dana said cocaine's not cheap.
What fucking $250 million this guy is worth? What are you doing?
I don't know. It's not looking good for him though.
Yeah.
Anyways, on to the next part. UFC fight night. We had a really good night on UFC. There was Kevin Gastelum, Robert Whitaker. It was a great fight. Um, Gastelum's got a fucking chin. That's all I know. This dude can eat shots like I've never seen before. Um, Whitaker looked fantastic. Punches, kicks, he was putting it all together. He looked a lot better than I was thinking he was going to look, and Gastelum looked a lot worse than I was thinking he was going to look. And Gastelum coming in didn't look as in shape as he did last fight. And I don't know if that was to do with obviously his training or like something happened, but um, Whitaker took control early, and he caught Gastelum. Whitaker has this combo. This one, it's a left, it's a jab, cross, kick. And as soon as he throws that kick or the cross, the kick's coming up following that cross. So he just goes left, right, kick straight up. And what kept happening was Gastelum kept parrying the cross and moving his head right down into the kick. And he got caught like 3 or 4 times with it. And
Wait, the kick was coming from what side? The left?
the right side. So it was like he was throwing the jab, the cross, and then as he was throwing the cross to like basically set himself up for the kick. Like in Muay Thai or like when you kick, one of the things they teach you is to like throw your hand out to kind of like block the opposing hand and then also to like balance yourself. So he was coming in with the jab, coming through with the cross, and as the cross was coming through, the right kick was coming right behind that cross. And then Gastelum was coming to the side, moving out of the way because he would go, if you're going to parry, it would be like you'd parry the jab and then you'd go like this for the cross. And that's at least how you're taught a lot of times in MMA. And your head comes over and that kick's just right there. So, like, whatever he was doing, it was just, he was getting caught with that consistently. Whitaker just looked sharp. He was hitting his jabs, hitting his crosses. That combo, like I said, I think he hit that combo at least 6 times in the fight. Um, he looks great. And now, with that being said, um, it looks like it's going to be Whitaker versus Izzy for the next fight. I don't know. Vittori's in a tough situation now. I still think Vittori and Whitaker should fight because I don't think they fought yet. I think Whitaker and Vittori should fight, and then the winner of that should fight Izzy. But the way that Whitaker looked, he wants the title fight, and he wants it now. He doesn't want to wait, and he's smart because like he's there. Why take the chance and fight Vittori if you don't have to? I just don't know what they're going to do with Vittori because those two are both on a like crash course for each other eventually. And Whitaker, honestly, I mean, I don't think he could, but he looks so good that like I think it would be a different fight against Izzy. And like this time, and this I heard an interesting flip on this is that like Izzy versus Whitaker this time is like the opposite, where Izzy's coming off a loss. Izzy's coming off, a defeat where Blachowicz kind of showed how to beat Izzy, whether it was just because of his size or not. He showed how to beat Izzy, and Whitaker has the skills to definitely come in and possibly beat Izzy. I don't not definitely not saying he would, but I think that what's going to happen here is that Whitaker's going to come in. He's going to fight Izzy. I think it's going to be a way better fight to say the least, and I think there's a good chance that he can win. But the problem is, like I said, what are they going to do with Vittori now? What's going to go on with Whitaker? Should those two fight each other, they actually get to Izzy. Then Darren Till's still in the picture, who hasn't fought yet. I think what's going to happen, personally, I think Whitaker is going to get the fight just because there's momentum behind that fight. I think Vittori will get the winner of that fight, and then I think Darren Till will be in the picture after that. But this could make things a lot interesting. Um, Gastelum, definitely feel for. He looked really good his last fight, and then just really, it just seems like he's not at that level for striking, and it's weird because like he gave Izzy his toughest fight, and Izzy's easily right now, I think, pound for pound, like one of the sharpest strikers in the UFC. I'll say he's got the best, you know, movement. He's got the best kicks. He's got the most accurate striking, I would say. He and uh, Gastelum gave him a run for his money, wobbled him, basically knocked him down twice. But Izzy didn't actually get knocked down because he was, kind of like fell into the cage. But um, yeah, I think Whitaker looked fantastic. I think it was the best I've ever seen Robert Whitaker look, and I think he really wants his title fight again. So I think him and Izzy's going to be great coming this time around, and I think that Izzy is hard pressed to make sure he's ready for this fight. I think he's got I'm sure he doesn't seem like the type of person that would let like a loss get to him like that because I don't think he went into the fight with Blachowicz thinking like like if I lose this fight like that's it type thing. But like I think he knew it was like a tough situation regardless, and he was just trying to make something interesting while he was waiting. But this middleweight division's got Paulo Costa still, Vittori, Whitaker, Izzy, Darren Till. Like this is turning into one of the better divisions in the UFC, and I think that another now that I'm talking, interesting thing could be Vittori versus Costa, and then Whitaker versus Izzy, and then those two. Maybe we see a rematch of Costa versus Izzy, which I'd rather not see. I'd rather see Vittori. But yeah, so Whitaker really dominated the fight. Um, just from the beginning, there was nothing. Gastelum had some moments, but there wasn't anything big. It just seemed like every time Gastelum had something going, Whitaker had an answer, and that was it. It was just moving forward. That was it. So it was a good card overall. A lot of good stuff. Tracy Cortez won. Luis Pena looked good and won. There was an upset, or I wouldn't really call it an upset, but Al Hassan was fighting Malkoun, and Malkoun just destroyed him from top to bottom. It was just a grappling nightmare for Al Hassan. He just looked completely outmatched. And then Andre Arlovsky again won. Just fucking dude's been in the UFC for decades, and he's just doing the same shit, and he just keeps beating dudes somehow. But he looks good. It was a good night overall. But we got big fights this weekend, huge fights. We got 5 main card fights, 3 championship fights, UFC 261 in Jacksonville, Florida. We got Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal fighting this weekend. A rematch from I think last year. It was last year. It was a short notice fight for Masvidal. Usman was supposed to fight Burns, and then the fight got chopped because Burns got COVID. So Masvidal stepped in on short notice and took the fight from Usman, or for Usman. Had a really bad weight cut. He only had, I think, 4 weeks to train or 5 weeks to actually train for the fight, and he lost. And I think he had to lose 27 pounds to get into that fight with Usman the first time. He got completely outmatched. It was like a 50-45 fight, which essentially is, that's like you got crushed. You didn't win a single round. You didn't have any moments. There wasn't really much going on for you. And Usman looked really good, and Masvidal just didn't have the answers for him. And I don't know if it was because of the weight cut, like the huge weight cut, or if it was just because Usman's that good. We're gonna have that finally answered. I personally think the only reason this fight is going on is because Masvidal had the excuse, and you can say quote unquote excuse, because I've heard things that he was training for a while, and like he technically really wasn't like unexpected of a fight camp as he says. He's been training for like weeks before that, but I think the only reason this fight's happening is because of the excuses that have been brought up. I don't think Masvidal has what it takes, and I think Usman's too good overall, and I think he's slightly better than Masvidal at all things, including wrestling, which I think is going to win this fight. And I think that Usman's just going to do what he did last time, which is, like Connor called him before, a jockstrap sniffer. Just put his head in your hips and just hold you up and just stop you until step out. But he also has gotten better, and he's shows the ability that I think he can strike with Masvidal as well. The question is can Masvidal catch him? Is Masvidal's wrestling improved? Was the weight cut really that big of an issue that it caused him to not be able to like perform at the highest level? We'll see. I think Usman's going to win by decision. I think this will be another 5-round fight because Usman's not the, I say that and he finished his last fight, but he's usually not the type to, finish like pure knockouts. And I don't think that Masvidal's going to just get knocked. Like Masvidal's not the kind of guy who's just going to get knocked out. He's just never been that dude. He'll take shots, like he's taken some shots, and I think that this is going to be a decision again. I think Usman's going to win. I think it's honestly going to be another 50-45 fight. I'm going to give Masvidal a little bit more respect because I think he's not that. I don't think he's what that last fight showed. I think it'll be if I had to score it, I think it'd be like a 50-48 fight all the way across the board. I think Masvidal is going to have more moments in this fight, but I think Usman's just on a roll right now, and I don't think Masvidal is the guy to stop him. And after that, it's just who does Usman fight next? Because he's basically going to be running through the ringer again. Like, he's just going back to the start and like lapping everybody and coming back around. Is he going to fight Colby again, which would be a huge fight? Is he going to fight Gilbert Burns again at some point? Is he going to fight? The only logical thing that I see next, if he wins, is Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy hasn't fought for the belt yet. He's fighting Gilbert Burns on Connor's card on July 10th, so that's going to be a huge fight. And I think if Wonder Boy wins that fight, I think he's got a real shot to actually step in because he's the only one who hasn't fought Usman before, and he's got an interesting style. He's a likable guy. Everybody likes Wonder Boy. He's like one of the least hated people in the UFC. He's just a nice dude overall. But I think he deserves a shot, and then we'll kind of just see what happens from there because I think Usman could be one of the next dudes who like either looks to step outside of division or like looks to move up and try to fight because he's kind of got that drive and that what do you call it, like that fire in him that I think he would want to do that. But we'll see what happens. Next fight we got Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas. Weili Zhang is the current champion, and she is badass. She's looked really good. Last year she won. She beat Joanna and Jacek and got the belt from Joanna and Jacek. And Joanna and Jacek is one of the, she was one of the top women's, what is the division? Yeah, strawweight champions. And she was like one of the best strawweights ever. And Weili Zhang beat her. And now she's got Namajunas coming up. So I think that Namajunas has had she's had a background, and she was a champion at one point, and then she beat Joanna and Jacek as well. She knocked Joanna and Jacek out, and then she lost to Jessica Andrade, who's also fighting on this card, and then she beat Jessica Andrade, and then obviously she's got this fight with Weili Zhang coming up for this title. I think honestly, I think Rose is going to win. She's looked she looks really good in what I've seen training wise. And I think that she's the type of person that I think last fight she mentioned that she wasn't really mentally all there, and her grandma died or something like that, or her grandpa died. I was listening to an interview with her and Helwani, and she just really wasn't there mentally before the fight. And I think now she's focused, she's prepared, and I really think she's going to step up and she's going to beat Welly, and she's going to get the belt back. I think I'm going to pick her. I'm going to go with a third round TKO. I think she's going to catch Weili Zhang, and she's going to get that belt back. Yeah, and like I said, I like Rose a lot. I think she's a really good fighter. She's got a lot of skills. She's good on the ground. She's good striking. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens with Weili Zhang because she's dangerous, and she's that's it. She's just dangerous. That's it. the third title fight and the last title fight, we got Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Andrade. So Shevchenko is essentially, if Amanda Nunes wasn't the thing, Shevchenko would be like the GOAT essentially in terms of women's UFC fighting. So I think that my throat's drying up. Sorry. Um, I think that Shevchenko is going to dominate this fight. I don't know. I think there's a problem in the women's UFC where there's a lot of talent at the top and there's a big gap between the next few. And I think that Nunez and Shevchenko are very much head and heels above everybody else. And I think that the only logical fights here are them again at some point at this weight division, which would be the flyweight division. Um, Shevchenko is just too complete. She's got everything. She's got kicks. She's got punches. She's got grappling. I think she's overall just a way better fighter than Andrade. And I think that what's going to happen here is what usually happens. Shevchenko is just going to dominate the fight. Really, there hasn't been anybody who's given Shevchenko a problem besides Amanda Nunes. So, and that's been in 4 or 5 years. She's clearly head and heels above everybody else. So I think the only logical thing here, she's going to dominate this fight and win. And then I think that Nunez versus Shevchenko is going to be the next fight to be made. So I'm going to go with Shevchenko. I'm going to go with a third round TKO. She's going to keep the belt, and then she'll move forward with whatever happens there. Next two fights, not championship fights, but good fights nonetheless. I'll start with Anthony Smith. He's the first fight of the night. Anthony Smith coming off an impressive first round submission. He looked really good. I forgot who was supposed to fight last time. But whoever he fought, and he won his first round submission, there was someone backed out or got sick, and he fought the guy that he fought, won by a first round submission. Anthony Smith has kind of been like a journeyman. He had a title shot a few years ago against John Jones, and he lost. He got destroyed. But he's a good fighter. He's a really good grappler. He's an okay striker. He's fighting an up and coming guy, Jimmy Crute, who's definitely good. I'm going to go with Jimmy Crute here. I think Crute's going to take him out, and I think that he's got, I think he's way better as a striker, and I think he's got enough to combat Anthony Smith's jiu-jitsu overall. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Crute. I'm going to go with a second round TKO. And then the last fight, we got Uriah Hall and Chris Weidman. This should be a fucking throwback. Should have happened 10 years ago. Uriah Hall coming off of a win against, I believe it was, Anderson Silva. He beat Anderson Silva in his last fight in the UFC. Hall's been a dude who kind of like should be a lot better than he is. And he was like the wonder boy coming up. Like when he was coming through the Ultimate Fighter, he was a savage on the Ultimate Fighter. He had like some of the sickest knockouts I ever seen on like these fights. He had a lot going for him. And then it just seemed like every time he was like there, he like, it was something that was like holding him back. And like he had a couple opportunities. He fought Paulo Costa and he lost. He had once he fought Costa and he got kind of like dominated, he didn't really look the same since. And then, he fought Carlos Jr. and then he fought Anderson Silva. And there really wasn't, they were good fights, but they weren't anybody who were going to be competing for the title. So I'm not really sure what was going on. And like I said, he's had a lot of like mental stuff that's kind of kept him back in terms of like taking that next step. He was supposed to fight Weidman, I think, like years ago. And that's why I was saying, I think he was supposed to fight Weidman like 5 or 6 years ago. So this fight is kind of something that should have happened a while back, and now it's finally happening. I think Uriah Hall is going to win. He looked really good last time. It's just dependent on which one shows up, really. It's just which Uriah Hall shows up. Weidman's a good fighter as well, and he's got a good history. He's coming off a win against Akhmedov, and he lost to Dominic Reyes, and I think it was 2019. But he's again kind of like a journeyman type fighter. He fought his call to fame wasn't even like his call to fame. He was there. He fought Silva the night he fucking snapped his leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, he checked his kick and snapped his leg, and beat Silva, but that wasn't, he didn't actually technically beat him. He just broke his leg. So I think Uriah Hall is going to win, and I think he's going to knock him out. I think it's going to be. I'm going to go with a second round knockout. I don't think it'll be a TKO. I think he's going to hit Weidman and drop him. So yeah. So just to review, we got all right. So I'm going to go with Usman. I'm going to go with a decision. Rose, I'm going to go with a third round TKO, and I think she's going to win the belt. So the new Shevchenko, I'm going to go with a third round TKO. Hall, I'm going with a second round TKO or knockout, and then Crute, I'm going to go with a second round TKO. So that's 5 fights, 5 UFC fights. Let's hope, because I've been still on a bad streak. I mean, I've realized this. I watch a lot of Chael Sonnen, but I usually watch him after we do this, and he doesn't put his predictions out until like late Thursday or early Thursday, and we usually do this on Wednesday. Me and him have a lot of the same opinions, and me and him have both been fucking wrong, absolutely wrong in the last 5 weeks. The comments are so funny on Chael Sonnen's YouTube. Probably one of the funniest things. They're like, "Don't pick me, Chael. I'm gonna like, don't say my name, Chael, or else I'm gonna get killed." It's so funny. But yeah, so UFC big weekend, and we got some stuff coming up. Obviously, in the next few weeks, we got some free fights. We got Reyes, and then we got Sandhagen Dillashaw, and then we got 262. So I'm excited to talk about that. But boxing, we got some boxing to talk about. We got a nice card this weekend. I'll let Jake take over. We got some the Puerto Rican boxing what do you call it, card, right?
Yeah, it's a night for the island.
Okay.
But first, talk about the actual
the boxing from last weekend. Yeah.
The fight last weekend that actually mattered. Demetrius Andrade versus Liam Williams. I picked Andrade to win by a late knockout, but I thought that there would be knockdowns from both guys. First of all, it was a really great fight, mostly because Liam Williams is one of those British fighters that is a little dumb, and like won't adjust. And not only does it hurt him, but it weirdly puts him in better positions to land clean shots sometimes. It happens rarely in boxing where you're so like awkward that it puts you in good position. But that happened. So Andre put Williams down, I think, in the second round, knocked him down. The guy, Andre hit this guy with like, I don't know, 157 uppercuts, like clean. At one point, he hit him with like 5 or 6 of them in a row. And Williams just didn't do anything. He didn't try to defend it, didn't try to move his head or roll into him or anything. Because for some reason, British boxers, European boxers just like to keep their guard high.
I found that doesn't work.
Yeah, it does not work. I've been saying it my whole life. But so Andre got the knockdown in the second, and then I want to say it was the 4th or 5th round. Williams again was in a very awkward position, like he was just bowling forward. And one thing that Andre does that is terrible and would get him fucked up against Canelo, which I'll get to in a minute, is that because he's got long arms and he's pretty quick, he throws these shots, and then before the shot lands, he starts drifting his head away to like roll away or slip away. And so he ends up in these positions where he's in a wide stance, or his foot is one of his feet is like, stepped off in the direction where he wants to go, and his head starts to follow that way, but really low.
I'm watching right now, and I'm literally seeing what you're explaining.
Yeah, and so this one moment they had a little exchange, and Andre did one of those things where he landed a shot, put his head down, and then swung around. And when he swung around, Liam Williams just came with a right. He just rolled around, bang, and came back, and Andre sort of rolled right into it. stunned the shit out of Andrade, and Andrade was stumbling around a little bit. He was holding on for dear life. Ended up holding on for the round. Then Andrade just basically was just picking him apart for the rest of the fight. And then later in the fight, I want to say like the ninth round, somewhere around there, Williams stunned Andrade again, had his back against the ropes. Andrade did a really great job holding on, didn't get him down. And then the last 2 rounds of the fight, Andrade came back and was just beating the ever loving shit out of this dude for the last couple of rounds. So it was a pretty brutal fight. Learned a lot about Andrade, that the dude definitely has heart, but he's got a lot of flaws. So he ended up winning the decision. But then after the fight, he called out Canelo, which is stupid. I mean, it's like, yeah, this tends to happen when you're undefeated. You know, everyone that's been in front of you, you beat, and your head gets really big. And I've said this before, you kind of have to have that to be a really good fighter. You have to have that belief that you're going to beat everyone.
I also feel like in that situation, like when you're like, who else are you going to call out? You know, like you might as well take your shot, shoot for the moon.
Yeah. I mean, he's the guy. He has a middleweight belt. Canelo still holds a middleweight belt, and he's the super middleweight champ. So it's in his wheelhouse, right? Like he's a guy that could be a possible name for him. I don't think it'll happen anytime soon because there are names at 168 that Canelo, I believe, has on his list of fucking his assassin list. You know, people he's gonna
kill.
Yeah, he's going down that list, man. He's fucking off and all these guys. But so he came out and called him out, and I just the shit that I was just saying about him landing a shot and then like very carelessly putting his head out there and rolling before one thing I always tell people when I'm training them is that, like say we're working the mitts and we're doing a combination where I have them slip or roll, right? They get to a point where they start anticipating the shot coming, and they start moving. That they'll throw a shot, and before the shot is through the target, they start moving their head in the direction they know that they're going next. So they're anticipating instead of seeing the shot come.
Yeah.
And I'm always telling them, like, that's how you get fucked up. Right? I mean, someone feints with this way, you're anticipating that shot coming, you start moving another way, bam, you're moving to something else.
Yep.
And Andrade tends to do that a lot, where he anticipates where a shot is coming from, and he'll go ahead and move his head in the opposite direction. That shit will not fucking work on Canelo. Canelo's too smart for that shit. He will put that dude to sleep real fucking quick.
He's going to use the feints all day, and he's just going to answer back.
Yeah, Canelo's like one of the best in boxing right now with feints.
Yeah.
Little jab steps, little head fakes, with everything. So anyway, that won't end up well for him. But it was a great fight nonetheless. Andrade won. We'll see what's next for him. I think that there is a possibility that he'll fight Canelo, but I don't think it'll be this year. Because again, I see after Billy Joe, Caleb Plant, and Benavidez are probably the next 2 fights for Canelo.
Yeah.
So this weekend, let's see here. We have I'm not going to go over all the fights, but there are
there's a couple main ones. We got Berlanga, right?
Yeah. So there are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights.
Damn.
But I'm going to go over 4 of them. All right. So I'm just going to go down the line in the order. So the main card is Emmanuel Navarrete versus Christopher Diaz. For Navarrete has one of the featherweight belts, WBO belt. Navarrete is one of these guys. He's got such long arms for a dude his size. It just looks odd. And what's even weirder is that he throws as many punches as he does with a guy that has reach like that. So what happens is he doesn't really, having that reach advantage over pretty much everyone, he doesn't use it. He likes to be on the inside. He likes to throw a lot of punches. He likes to throw uppercuts, which is very awkward because he can land uppercuts from range with effectiveness because his arms are so long. but he's a very awkward fighter. He's a good fighter, a lot of heart. And Christopher Diaz is honestly he's an average fighter. There's not like he's not one of these guys like you look at him and you're like, okay, he does this okay, he does that okay. So I think Navarrete is gonna fucking crack this dude with something real big. I'm gonna say Navarrete puts him out. We'll go 6th round and keeps his belt. Next down the line, Berlanga
Berlanga.
versus Damon Nicholson. I've seen a little bit of this dude Nicholson. All he is a dizzy motherfucker. Guy goes in there and throws real hard punches, but you fart on this dude and he's his fucking knees go. I'm telling you, he's a dizzy motherfucker. And Berlanga's we're probably looking at another 1st round knockout. So Berlanga, I think, extends his streak. I'm going 1st round knockout. There's no fucking way this dude's last more than a round. I don't think so.
I saw a picture of Berlanga 2 days ago. He met Lil Wayne, and then Lil Wayne wanted a cardboard cutout of him in his studio. Lil Wayne's got a cardboard cutout of him.
I saw that.
Edgar Berlanga in his studio.
I saw the picture. Yeah, Lil Wayne was wearing like a garbage bag or something. Right?
It's true. Oh man.
Okay, and then next we got Josue Vargas versus Willie Shaw. These guys are welterweights. Vargas is pretty talented. Like he's one of these guys that probably does have the skill, the potential to be like a top name in the welterweight division. Again, nothing really spectacular about him, but he's a very good fighter, very effective fighter. He's fighting a guy named Willie Shaw, who, he can box a little bit, but he's a little slight. I don't think he's going to be able to handle Vargas's power shots. I'm going to say Vargas gets rid of Shaw. Let's go. It's a 10-round fight. I'll go 8th round. Vargas 8th round knockout. And then the last one I'm going to pick is the young phenom, kid's 19 or maybe still 18. I don't know. Xander Zayas.
I've heard you talk about him before. Yeah.
Yeah, he's fighting a guy named DeMarcus Layton. Now, this guy DeMarcus Layton couldn't find anything on him. He is an up-and-coming prospect, though. I think he's 5-0 with 3 knockouts. So he's got something on the line here as well. I'm gonna go. So I'm basing this all just on what I've seen from Zayas, what I know about him, and what I know about boxing and how this shit works. I'm gonna say this is another guy that Zayas is gonna put down and get out of there quick. It's only a 6-round fight. I'm gonna say I picked Zayas. He fought just a couple weeks ago, and I picked him to
yeah. I thought
yeah. And it ended up going the full 4 rounds. I'm going to say Zayas comes back. I'm going to say he gets a knockout this one. I'm going to say the 4th round.
Cool.
Okay, so I got Navarrete, knockout, Berlanga, knockout, Vargas, knockout, Zayas, knockout.
4 for 4 knockouts?
And to be honest with you, on this card, there's a good chance that we see knockouts in almost all of these. There's a good chance that we see all knockouts.
That's interesting. I'm excited to see it. So
yep, it's on ESPN.
It's on ESPN?
Yep.
Cool. So 9 fights overall we picked this weekend. 9 fights. We got the 4 Jake just picked, the 5 that I picked for UFC. Ton of stuff to watch this weekend. Obviously, UFC is a pay-per-view. It's a big one. The boxing's free on ESPN, so tune in. Any other news or things like that?
No. Oh, the Joshua Fury. There's an update. They have the fight is going to be in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, cool.
So they have the place now. So we're getting closer to a date for the fight. And next week another week, a ton of fights.
Yeah, May 1st, right?
Fox pay-per-view. Got a card on DAZN. Uh, Katie Taylor's fighting next week. Derek Chisora, Dimitri Bivol is fighting. Erislandy Laro's fighting. Andy Ruiz is fighting. Sebastian Fedor is fighting. Ton of fights next week.
Cool. All right, I'm excited for it. Definitely break that down next week. So this weekend, tune in. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know your predictions. All of UFC, all of boxing. There's a lot to talk about. Oh, thank God we don't have to talk about Askren and Paul anymore, or Jake Paul in general. We're done. Signing off until something else comes up. And yeah, so a lot of UFC coming up, a lot of boxing coming up. Enjoy it, watch it, let us know what you think. And we will see you guys next week. Peace.
See ya.